such a wreck.
Hey Geekscapists, with Valentine's Day around the corner, we've decided to hook you up. Geekscape has partnered with the video dating app Filter Off to bring you a free and fun video speed dating event on Saturday, February 13th. To take part, all you've got to do is download the Filter Off dating app to your smartphone. Find the Geekscape event and RSVP with the code GeeksLove2. That's TOO, because we do love to. You don't have to wait until Valentine's to use the app either. It's fun and free, and Matt Kelly has already racked up a ton of dates on it, so what have you got to lose? Download Filter Off, and we'll see you on February 13th. Geekscape forever.
Let's party each and every year on Christmas Eve, where the fun and cocktail shrimp don't seem to end. Clark and Ralphie taking turns on the TV screen, laughing, singing, yelling with all of our friends. Well, it's Christmas, and everybody's gonna spread the holiday cheer. 'Cause it's Christmas. Whoa, oh, it's the best time of the year. Let's go fake reindeer.
Hi, Dylan. Dylan? Oh no, it's just me. So this is a little bit scary, flying solo without my Christmas BFF by my side. Unfortunately, Dylan's cat, who you may have heard in the background of a few episodes, managed to flood the bathroom. So Dylan is dealing with that, but that is fine because we have an incredible guest for you listeners today. Ever since we started the show, people keep asking, when are you going to talk about the Hallmark Christmas movies? They are such a giant, important piece of a lot of people's Christmas celebrations. And we just so happened through one of our past guests to have a connection with someone who starred in one of this year's Hallmark movies. So from the Christmas Bow, we have Jyl Kaneshiro joining us. Jyl, thank you so much for joining me today on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Matt.
Let's talk about Hallmark movies.
Okay.
Now, I think we're going to have kind of two pieces of this episode. We're going to have an episode with you, and then another friend of mine wants to talk about, as just a viewer, what they love about these movies. And Hallmark has managed to carve out a very specific genre of Christmas movie that is so popular that one could argue that Netflix is kind of stealing their format now for a lot of their original movies.
They are trying. They're definitely trying, but Hallmark, I think, will forever be untouchable in that regards.
Now, before you did Christmas Bow, were you already a big Hallmark Christmas movies fan?
Okay, I cannot lie about this, but no, I actually, I had never seen one. I had never seen a Hallmark movie, and I was like, oh, I have to watch one now, to see where this is going to go. And I talked to some diehard Hallmark friends, and I was like, give me suggestions, because honestly, I thought it was kind of cheesy. I wasn't sure what I was getting into. And so they gave me suggestions, and God, I have to say I'm kind of a Hallmark fan now. It's so beautiful and simplistic, and it's just a feel good time. There's nothing more to it. It just makes you feel good watching it. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. I see why people love it.
Yeah, I was never big into the Hallmark Christmas movies myself, but over the last year or two, especially last year, I had my wisdom teeth taken out in the beginning of December. So I was kind of indoors a lot more than the normal holiday season. And, this year, the world has decided that I'm indoors for most of the Christmas season.
Yes.
So I was going through a lot of the streaming service stuff. And that's when I started to dip into those Netflix original Christmas movies. And I went into them with a very like almost like, oh, this is going to be dumb. I'm going to have fun making fun of it. And it was such an immediate warm blanket of a show, of a movie to watch. And I was like, I get it. I get the appeal of these now.
Absolutely. I was listening to your first episode, Let It Snow. And We moved into our the place we're staying in now at this time last year, and that was the first movie we watched here. And nobody had talked about it. It wasn't like advertised, but I had seen it on like a recommended for it was like a logo recommended something. So I'm like, oh, we'll just watch it. But it was so charming and just it was a feel
It's a
good movie.
magical movie. I really think it's a magical special movie. And I think that Netflix really screwed up not putting the
Marketing.
yeah, like before I ever watched it, I knew about the Christmas Prince trilogy. You know what I mean? Like they
Mhm.
blasted that everywhere on Netflix. So to like
Yeah.
bury something like Let It Snow that I think could and should have been a theatrical release, honestly, is like insulting to me. But yeah, there is something about those movies where, you know, the way I describe it is, you know, our connection is through obviously the Fright School podcast boys
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
Josh and Joe. Joe introduced me to Gilmore Girls last year.
Oh no.
And and I mean the thing that I liked about Gilmore Girls is the same thing that I do like about the brand of Hallmark Christmas movies, is that when you go into it, you're not going to be sitting there with this overwhelming drama and a lot of stress and like a lot of like heavy stuff. It's like everything is going to be okay. You know that it's going to have a happy ending. Everyone's
Yeah.
going to overcome their struggles. Like
Yes,
it's
yes.
just you just like go in with like low commitment, and it's that perfect show where you just imagine yourself watching the TV by a fire with like some hot cocoa in your hand and a blanket up
Yeah.
to your neck and just enjoying yourself.
100%. That's so true. And I, in fact, was not or am not still a Gilmore Girls fan, but I got a commercial that was specifically talking about Gilmore Girls, so I had to pretend I was a huge fan of it. And I'm like, I'm getting all these things that I've never done before, and it's opening my eyes to all the brilliant stuff out there. That you're so right. It's just a warm cup of like comfort, and it's pretty good. People need to watch it, especially nowadays. We need more of
Yeah.
this.
And we've said that about even this show. Like when we decided to make this show, the idea was like, I need, as someone who's produced so many podcasts that while they're fun, they have this edge of pessimism in them. I
Yes.
wanted something that was just so fully optimistic and upbeat and wholesome and funny. Like I think that you can be all of those things, and so much of comedy is the pessimism. It's much
Yes.
easier to make fun of something than it is to like genuinely celebrate it.
That's true.
Let's walk through the whole experience, because I feel like everything I've heard, the only thing I've heard comparable to Hallmark is maybe Lifetime, in the way that it is like this almost a singular entity that just creates these things. And, you know, you should be excited, because from what I understand, it's like if you get your foot in the door, it's usually not just for one thing.
I'm hoping that's the case because I'm hearing that from everybody. So I hope that is the truth.
How did you first even hear about the job?
Okay, so I've been a theater actor for 20 plus years, and I just started doing commercials probably 2 years ago. And my commercial agent just happened to submit me for this in August, I think middle August, and they wanted to see me. So I sent in a submission of all the scenes, just playing to myself. And then they called me, like I sent it in Friday. They called me on Monday and told me I had the part. And I was like, oh,
wow.
that's insane. And they're like, can you be in Utah? I'm like, oh, when? Yeah, and it was basically the next day. I think I had to go up Wednesday because I needed to be COVID tested and quarantined for a couple days. So I went up Wednesday, got tested Friday, and then we started shooting Monday.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it was a very quick process, and it was incredible. It was an incredible experience. It was my first, TV, film, anything. So I've done commercials, and that was my extent of on-screen acting. So until now.
Was there something about specifically the Christmas bow that drew you to it, or was it more just your agent saying, hey, this is a thing that I think would be really good for you?
Well, my agent submitted me just because of the age range and the ethnicity that they wanted for this character, and they were looking for her. And they wanted someone who could play Lucia Micarelli's mother, because Lucia is half Korean, half Italian. So they're like, you kind of have to look like her. So I guess I kind of fit that mold, which I'm very blessed to say that I do, because she's beautiful and just so talented. But yeah, so they submitted me by picture, and they were like, okay, we'll see if she can act. And that's how I got in.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was incredible.
So they basically essentially rush you out to Utah, which I'm not sure if it was your first experience in Utah, but I've been there once before, and it is a very gorgeous state.
It was probably one of the most beautiful places I've been. Unfortunately, the time that, COVID and everything, we weren't able to go out much, and also it was 116 degrees. so I wasn't able to explore the beauty of it. I wasn't able to hike much or any of that. So I'm definitely going to go back, just because I've never seen anything so beautiful.
And I mean, that right there, that sentence alone, what is it like in 100? Did you say 116?
It was like 100, and it ranged from like 110 to 116. Yeah.
So yeah, in 110 to 116 degree weather, you're filming a Christmas movie.
Yes. Yeah. It was, and we're talking, the coats and everything, but luckily my shots were all indoors, but they had outdoor festival scenes where they were wearing scarves and mittens and jackets, and I can't imagine. But ours was indoors. We couldn't have the air on because of noise, and then we had our fireplace going, so it was yeah, it was a lot. It was, and I think a lot of the Hallmarks shoot like that, during the summer and then air for Christmas. So because it was a quick turnaround. We shot the end of August, and then we premiered in November. So it was quick. And I think most of them shoot like that.
That's a really quick turnaround time.
It was.
And I guess that's kind of, again, the hallmark and I guess to a certain extent the Lifetime thing is that they are able to just churn out these things at a rapid speed. It's not, you've got some movies where they might take 2 or 3 years of post-production before it's ready to come out, like a Marvel movie, and then you have a Hallmark movie where you're shooting it in the summer and it's out by November.
Exactly.
Which is crazy. But you said this was your first TV film role, but you had done some commercial stuff. Was there anything that was notably jumped out at you as dramatically different than what you were used to? Or I could see in a weird way Hallmark actually falling into, because of the quick turnaround time, a very familiar commercial-like shooting schedule.
It was a regular set as far as shooting schedule, but I'm not sure if this was the norm, but it was so warm and welcoming as far as everyone was family and everybody knew each other. They've all worked together, anyone from stagehands to lighting to all the crew, they all knew each other. Even you say if you've been in a Hallmark movie, you get asked back. But as far as the director, Claire Niederprum, she has directed, I think, 3 other Hallmark movies. So they all get asked back. And so they're all very close. And I'm like, oh gosh, since this was my first experience on TV and film, I want it to always be like this. So I have a high precedence for my next one, unfortunately, or fortunately.
I mean, I think they'll satisfy every time. So obviously we're in a very weird time where you can't really have a huge gathering for a big viewing party. But
Sure.
What was it like on the premiere day for you?
It was just me and my girlfriend and friend who came over to watch it with us, and because it aired at 10 at night, I think, the first day. So it aired at 10, and people, my friends, commented on it throughout, on Facebook and stuff. So it was neat. It was hard to watch myself, so I kind of played with my dogs while I was on TV. It was it was interesting for sure.
It's such a weird thing, and I think that people get this idea about performers of any type that we just love seeing ourselves in the spotlight. But I feel like more often than not, I mean, I'm glad that I edit all of my own podcast content, but it is punishing to basically have to listen to my own voice 4 or 5 days out of the week.
True. Yep.
Like, you're
Yep.
just like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, you pick up every bad habit you have. You pick up every awkward tick. You're just like, oh, I don't like
You're
this at
like, oh, I
all.
sound like that? No.
Yeah.
With COVID and everything, all of our auditions have been through video submissions. So I haven't even had to go up to LA, and I've had to, edit my submissions, and oh, it's just awful watching yourself. You're like, oh, I
Yeah.
can't believe I even do that. It's so bad.
My sister and my niece came over for Thanksgiving, and my niece wanted to film a TikTok dance with me,
Uh-huh.
which I agreed to do. And then my sister pointed out that I was trying so hard to concentrate on remembering all the moves that I am stone-faced biting the bottom of my lip with like the most intense stare. And I was like, God, I want this video just wiped off of the earth. I don't want
That
people
is
seeing this.
wonderful. Okay, now I have to know
And
where I can find this.
I think my sister shared it. I'll try to get a copy and send it to
Okay.
you. I'll do that for you.
Thank you.
Now, with the role, you are pretty high on the call list on IMDb, and were you there for an extended period of time, or were you there for just a week, or like, do you feel like you got to experience most of the filming, or were you kind of in and out quickly?
They shot for, I believe, a month. I don't remember, maybe it was either 2 weeks to a month, but I was there at the very beginning, and I was only there for a couple days, and I drove back home to San Diego because I wasn't going to shoot for another week. So I came home for a week, and then I drove back out, and then I shot for 4 days. So I was only needed for 6 days, and I think they shot for 2 weeks. Yeah, I think that's how it worked.
Okay, that's not too bad. So that's about half the shoot schedule. You were at least there to experience it.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. So I feel like there was a short-lived podcast that I used to love called I Was There Too.
Mm-hmm.
And the concept of it was interviewing people who were extras for one day on a production.
Yeah.
And the idea of like, you get to see this very microscopic piece of the full shoot and like what your experiences were just in that one day.
That's a great podcast.
Oh, it was such a cool idea. It's just a very cool way to like look at a project. But you got to experience the whole thing. For the most part, you got to see the process, and that's very, very cool.
It is. I since, like I said, I hadn't been in one, to see how we filmed, and then to see the final project and how it all came together was just, I'm like, oh my God, it is truly movie magic. What they do, all the editors and everything. It's just, I cannot get over the talent of these people. I'm like, I'm glad I'm just in front of the camera, because I don't know how you all put it together in the end. But it was beautiful to see.
And I think that brings back what we were talking about earlier with like, it's such a shame because we do live in this society where something like a Hallmark movie is immediately kind of looked at through most people with like rolling eyes. And I think that it devalues how much time and effort and work go into like making something like that. And
that is true.
And how much we need, like we said before, we need those optimistic things every once in a while. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm never going to campaign that a Hallmark movie should be in contention for Best Picture
No.
At the Oscars, but like not every movie needs to be a 3-hour long, just heartbreaking drama either. Like,
no,
there's a time and a place for all of it.
Yeah. But, and even, with just what Hallmark puts out, these people are turning over full-length movies in, a month and a half. And to think that they did all of this work is incredible. So yeah, I definitely want to give props to all the people behind the scenes, because I don't know how they do that.
And they look good. Like,
they look
like
incredible. Yeah.
Like I'm a big horror movie fan, and like horror movies have had a long history of the quick turnaround time, but like they also look really cheap. like the Hallmark movies are so well shot and like beautiful. Like the picture quality on them is fantastic. It's not like when you had like something like Asylum Films, nothing against Asylum Films, but Asylum Films like, hey, there's a Transformers movie coming out in theaters in 3 months. We've got to shoot Transmorphers to get that into Blockbuster in time. And
Yeah.
it looks like it was rushed. Like it looks rushed. It looks like it was thrown together in a matter of weeks. But like the
Right.
Hallmark movies don't look that. The Hallmark movies are shot in a way, and it totally makes sense because you need to be able to constantly rescreen them, but they look timeless.
They do.
They fall into a completely timeless. You could watch a Lifetime or Hallmark movie from 10 years ago, and if you had never seen it before, you'd think that it was just released that year.
You're so right about that. Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
So what was your draw into acting?
I think it was the fact that I never thought I could do something like this because I am deathly shy. Like I couldn't even order at a restaurant. I was so shy as a kid or up until my teenage years. And in college, I kind of accidentally walked into an acting class, which I thought was a speech class. And I was there for a week and kind of fell in love with it. I'm like, oh, this is bringing out something in me that I didn't know I had. And I went to audition that weekend for a play that I saw advertised in Craigslist or something, and I got the lead in it. And it just kind of went on from there. It was something that I realized that I could not be myself, but bring out the best in me in not being myself. And it was something I've been in love and so grateful for forever now.
I think that is wonderful. It's funny looking at it through the lens of like me. Like, you know, you always try to put yourself in similar shoes and you try to find, I always talk about how life is a series of trying to find commonality and shared experience. And for me, I think back of like me as a kid who was so afraid to talk in front of people and was terrified of ever having to give a book report or do any type of public speaking, to like look now and it's like, okay, well now I host or produce 5 weekly podcasts where I sit in front of a microphone and talk to potentially hundreds to thousands of people, and feeling that connection, feeling that reaction when you like put something out there and people message you. We were talking about last week when we put out the Let It Snow episode. I was so touched that you listened to it and were talking to me about it just now. But like we got an email already from someone in France saying that they hey, you know, we'd never heard of the movie. We listened for about 10 minutes and then had to pause the podcast and just had to go and watch it because you guys hyped it up so much. And it's like, I don't know how you found our show, but I'm so glad that you did. Like, I'm so glad that we reached out and we had this connection, and like, whether we meet or never meet, I'm going to always think about the person in France that watched Let It Snow when I watched Let It Snow. And I hope that in France, you always think that you found this because of my podcast. Like,
that is so
and
cool.
that we have that. Yeah. Like, I think that there's something so beautiful about that communal connection that, that in this time, in this year where we are as more separated as we could ever be, we have found ways to connect despite all of it.
That's so
and
true.
That's so cool.
It is.
And it does bounce back to Hallmark. I think that there is this thing with we're all trapped indoors, and with the streaming services and with the Hallmark movies and with the time of the holidays specifically, we get to have those shared, I call them shared individual moments where you're doing something by yourself, you're alone doing it, but you're hopping on the Twitter and seeing what people are live tweeting about it, or you're, you know, looking for the memes that people have posted about it. Like, I think that Tiger King in March set a tone for how we were going to digest media this entire year. Whereas like, it didn't matter if you saw Tiger King right when it dropped or if you waited until May. The second you watched it, all of a sudden, things that you had been seeing on the internet all clicked and made sense simultaneously.
Yes. As soon as I got the part, and I got on all the Hallmark forums, on Facebook, on Instagram, and everything, and it's so true about it being a singular communal thing. It was, you know, they all watch it together. They talk about it. They're like, did you watch this? And then there's this whole wonderful conversation between strangers from all over the world talking about the singular subject. And I love going on the Hallmark Facebook page and everything and just seeing everybody just how much they enjoy it and how much how necessary it is to them, especially nowadays, and how it just brings them all together. I highly recommend going on the Hallmark Facebook page because it's really a good escape for a little bit. And they all show all their Christmas stuff. Like I just decorated my house this week, or some of them decorated in October and they're showing their stuff, but they all have this thing, this one love of something. And I can't believe what they've done and how they were able to touch people in a way that no one else has and everyone wants to do now. So, but Netflix and everything, they're doing a really good job at it considering, because I watched a few of them, and even Hulu now. Isn't Hulu doing that too with that Kristen Stewart movie?
Yeah. Happiest Season.
Yes, yeah.
Well, I think that what's also really great, and I know that there are people who do not like this, but I love that we have somehow found our way back to now streaming, doing weekly episodes, with like Disney Plus doing the weekly episode drop for like The Mandalorian, and Amazon Prime did that with The Boys. But for me, the big one was Netflix doing weekly episode drops of Great British Baking Show. Was like, it was so good. It was I had a group of friends. We were all watching it and texting and getting frustrated when our favorites left the show. And it was such a great way to keep us in touch for 10 weeks.
I agree.
Like, I think that there's something lost in a binge. Like, a binge is fun and it's great. But like the way I explained it to a friend one day was like, when I binge content, one of two things happens. I either do not retain or quickly forget things that I absolutely adored and loved, or I am super forgiving of bad content. Like a bad season of a show is like, whatever, it made the day go by.
Right.
And it's like, no, like, but when you're watching a show weekly, when you're dedicating years and years and years to like every Thursday at 8:00, I'm going to watch this show. You have that point where you're like, I'm not going to stand for the writing being this bad anymore. And you walk away.
Yes. Yeah. I totally agree with that. Oh, I wanted to tell you, I don't know if you were the one who said that you compared Let It Snow with Christmas, Empire Records, and...
Yes, that was me.
Oh my God.
Can't hardly wait.
Brilliant. That was brilliant. And I'm sure that line is what made the person in Paris go, I'm going to watch this right now.
I mean, it really is those two. Like I said on that episode, if you told me that movie was filmed in 1996, I would have believed you outside of the cast. Like everything else feels so 90s.
Yes.
And I want to bounce off of that. So talking about Let It Snow, talking about Christmas, we're hitting the very weird experimental area of, will people continue to listen to a Christmas podcast all year round?
Yes.
Well, what I'd love to know is, are you a Christmas fan? And if so, what are some of the absolute every year I need to do this at Christmas time?
Oh no, I knew this was going to be a question, and it's funny, but I had a lot of like family issues, and it came up usually around Christmas. So Christmas for me has always been just a time of conflict, and I've always kind of wanted to push it aside, even though as a kid it was just the most beautiful experience. But as I grew older, it was really hard for me around the holidays. But now that I'm past that and I'm in a good place with my family, it is once again like a time of being young at heart, and something that I look forward to. I'm learning to love it again, and I can see why everybody loves it too. So it's definitely grown to take a special place in my heart. But as far as, the Christmas traditions, every year my mom would play the Kenny Rogers Christmas album. So,
nice.
in some form, I have to listen to Kenny Rogers and Sound of Music. I don't know why, but we have to listen to The Sound of Music. So, yeah.
It's so funny, the weird things that we associate with the holiday, even if it's not specifically tied to the holiday.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I watched Babes in Toyland for the first time this year. And I've always heard like, the Christmas classic. And I watched, I'm like, it really isn't tied to the holidays at all, but it involves toys. So I guess we just kind of like associate it with that. Or, I feel like Wizard of Oz gets this like, oh, the Thanksgiving classic. Like it's always on Thanksgiving. There's no real
Right.
reason for us to put the Wizard of Oz on Thanksgiving, but just became that thing. It
Yeah.
just became that thing for us. Maybe next year I'm going to put on, in your honor, I'm going to put on Sound of Music for one of my nights of Christmas.
Oh, that'd be so great.
I mean, it's funny because like to me, this has come up before, and we've already talked about it in one episode already with Emmett Otter. But like to me,
Aw.
the season isn't the season without the Muppets in my life. Like I need to have all the different Muppet Christmas things because they've made so many Christmas specials.
Yeah.
To me, there's something about, and I think it matches what the goal is with the show of just they are so overwhelmingly wholesome and full of love.
Yes.
And it matches what you want to feel. Like the ideal feeling during Christmas time is that overwhelming positivity and love.
It's so funny. Emmett Otter, I hadn't even heard of that until 5 years ago. And it is such a beautiful, just heartwarming. I can't even get over how wonderful it is. And my girlfriend usually has to watch it every single year. So I've kind of grown to love all of the, the must-haves, like the Charlie Brown Christmas, all of that, Rudolph and everything. So that is also part of my tradition that I didn't mention. Now,
we touched on it a little bit when we did the Emmett Otter episode, but like there's something so beautiful about that special and the idea of making the centerpiece song a song that has really nothing to do with Christmas, but a song about remembering your loved ones that have passed on.
So beautiful.
It's, oh my God, I think my mom organizes the music at our local church every Christmas.
Oh.
And I think I've fully convinced her that her church band needs to do Where the River Meets the Sea this year during their Christmas set.
Are they?
I think they're going to do it. She was like, let me try to learn it. It is so, it just breaks your heart. It breaks your heart. It's beautiful. And that there's something about watching movies like that and shows like that where the message, and this is a message that I've needed ever since I was 13 and lost my grandfather, really. The message of like, Christmas is that time where it's okay to feel sad that the person that you wish was sitting at that table with you isn't able to sit at that table with you anymore.
Oh,
and like, that's okay. Like you're allowed to feel that. It's so weird to think that I go from getting so excited about Halloween and like all ramped up, and then like November 1st happens and just like a switch is flipped and it's like, all right, it's time to get deep about feelings. But there's nothing wrong with it. I think that that's a life well led to be able to appreciate the darkness and the light simultaneously.
You are so right. And most people don't have both of that. So when I was, I've heard that you knew Joe and Joshua through, the horror genre. I'm like, why is he doing Christmas? But just hearing your appreciation for it is just, it's wonderful. I love that you are able to go to both ends, and I'm definitely want to follow that path too.
So the story of Joe and I have a very fun origin story. Anybody who's not familiar with Joe beyond being on the episode, he is a very good podcast host, but he is also one of the most marketing minded persons you'll ever meet.
Yes.
So I have a booth at San Diego Comic-Con every single year.
Okay.
And I was selling horror shirts, and he had just started Fright School and just walked up to me and was like, I see that you're selling horror stuff. I have a horror podcast, and gave me his business card. So I started listening to the show, and I messaged him and was like, I love the show. I appeared on Fright School a couple times. He appeared on my podcast a couple times. We flew him out to the Philadelphia area for a horror convention.
Oh, wow.
I make sure to make time to hang out with him every year at San Diego Comic-Con. So I hang out with him and Josh. Before the pandemic, I was actually going to spend the night at Josh's house.
Oh, no.
Joe is great. Joe and Josh I just feel joy whenever they pop up anywhere in my news feed, anywhere in my day-to-day life.
You're so right about that. They're
beacons of great people. They're just like, you want everyone you meet to be the people that they are.
Yeah, that is great. That I love that. That is so true. You just completely define those two. That is so true. And Joe had nothing but good things to say about you. He was like, "This is a dear friend. He's one of the most incredible people I've known." And he was trying to sell you, and
Uh-oh.
I'm like, "Okay, I'm already sold, so no worries." But he just had high things to say about you. So yeah, Joe put me in touch with you, and it was just anything that Joe says is good. I'm going to go for. So
Joe has already got contacted us with like 3 or 4 different guests just because he was. I shouldn't be surprised. Like there was something in my head that knew like, I'm going to do a Christmas podcast. Who is going to absolutely adore this? And like,
right,
obviously, it was going to be Joe.
right,
It's nice
yep.
to know good people. And
Oh yeah.
I feel like we're probably close to about the same age range. And
Hmm.
I think we've both hit that point in our lives where like you start to learn that like if your friend is kind of shitty, they don't have to still be your friend anymore. And like that's
Yes.
like it's such a thing in your 20s. Like your 20s, you just spend a lot of it hanging out with people that you don't really like
Like.
or think are that nice, but they're
Yep.
just like part of a social circle. And then,
Hmm.
you get to your 30s and you're like, oh, I don't have the energy for that anymore.
That is so
like,
true. It's like
like I just want to
unfriend,
be,
unfriend. Yep.
yeah, like I just want to be around people that make me a better me. And like if people aren't going to be elevating me emotionally and elevating me as a person and are going to
Yep.
be actually making me a worse person for me being around them, then I really shouldn't be spending time with them.
Yeah. Yeah. You learn a lot once you get to this age, and it's like, oh, I seem to have wasted my 20s, but you needed that. It was necessary to go through that to be able to see the other side of it as well.
Oh, for sure. I
Yeah.
would argue that the 2 worst times in a human being's life,
Seventh grade, seventh,
yeah,
eighth
like
grade. Yep.
sixth, seventh, eighth grade, and your
Hmm.
20s.
Oh yeah.
They are the absolute worst.
The worst. Hmm.
My life, the second I turned 30, was just forward momentum in the most positive way until
Yep.
March 13th, 2020. Like,
True. True. True.
but thank you so much for joining us, Jyl. I
Yeah.
want to
Thank
ask
you.
you one last thing. We've
Okay.
added a new segment to the show. This
Hmm.
was Dylan's creation, so it's unfortunate that Dylan is currently trying to clean an entirely flooded bathroom.
Oh
But the
gosh.
the question is, around the holidays, obviously you have like your go-tos. You're always putting on, you know, It's a Wonderful Life for me is a big one that I have to watch every year.
Hmm.
But you're also always adventuring into like, ooh, I just found this new song that is now definitely going to go on every year's Christmas playlist. Or, oh, I just found this amazing movie. I'm going to make sure that every time that like November, December rolls around, I make some time to watch this. Is
Hmm.
there anything that you discovered this holiday season that you are like, 2021 and beyond, I am going to make it a point to revisit this every year?
I was so not anti Christmas, but I was so like Grinch about Christmas that most of the Christmas joy comes from Kim, my partner, who just loves the season. So, she has her everything, that traditions that she has that we put in place. But I think one of my favorite things that we've kind of created together is I'm a huge penguin fan. So there's penguins all over our house. And now I think Christmas kind of lives in our house 365 days a year because of all the penguins standing around our house. And every
Oh,
year we just add more, especially to the ornaments for our tree. We just add 2 or 3 more penguin ornaments. So that's a tradition we started, and it's just going to keep growing. And I'm going to be living in a huge penguin house soon. So it's
I
been
love
nice.
that. I absolutely
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
For mine, one of the Christmas soundtracks that has been in my life for years is the
Mhm.
Hanson Snowed In Christmas album. I've always loved that album.
Handsome.
But about 2 years ago, they put out a sequel to it called Finally It's Christmas.
Oh.
And the thing with Hanson that people don't tend to realize, because I host a podcast about one hit wonders, so I know a little bit about
Mm.
this. They are definitely a one hit wonder. They
Right.
are
Right.
they are known for bop and nothing else. But
Hmm.
while the rest of the world forgot about Hanson, in 1997, Hanson never stopped playing, which means that they have become a group of musicians who have played together consistently for 25 years,
Oh,
which
wow.
means that they are insanely talented now.
Oh, wow.
And
Mhm.
this Christmas album is just phenomenal. It is so good. It's so funky. Like I hate using that word, but they have the track specifically that I recommend everyone check out if they want to explore the Hanson Christmas album is a little 2-minute song that they put together called Joy to the Mountain, which is a combination of the best parts of Joy to the World and the best parts of Go Tell It on a Mountain smashed
Wow.
into this just like sounds like Queen We Will Rock You type anthem with just a driving drum beat and a choir of voices singing it. It'll put a tear in the eye every single time. So highly, that is my rediscovery of this year is the Hanson Finally It's Christmas album.
I'm going to check that out. Thank you.
Please do. Jyl, thank you again so much for joining us. If people
Thank you.
want to follow more of your career, is there any social media that you want to recommend that they go and follow you on for when you appear in every Hallmark Christmas movie from now until eternity?
I'm just on Instagram and Facebook. I don't have my website up yet. I will eventually someday, but I'm just, you could just follow me there. Instagram. I think I'm Jyl Harue. Harue is my middle name. So yeah.
Okay. And I will get that from you before the episode comes out. We'll put that in the comments of the episode. You will find a link to all of Jyl's socials. So thank
Very
you
cool.
once again. And finally, happy holidays.
Same to you. Thank you so much. Thank you again for having me. And this is a wonderful show and best of luck to you with it.
Oh, whoa, oh, now we won't stop till the big ball drops on New Year's. Happy holiday, have a great holiday, have a merry happy holiday.
Hey everybody, I'm Chris Fafalius, and I'm the producer of Krista Makes a Podcast and the host of the One Hit Thunder podcast.
And I'm Matt Kelly, host of Horror Movie Night and the producer / the head of content for the Geekscape Podcasting Network.
Between the two of us, we have, believe it or not, 25 years of podcasting experience, and we want to help you start your own podcast.
We know podcasting, and we want to share that knowledge with you.
So whether you're new to podcasting or you want some feedback on your currently active podcast, we want to help.
Or perhaps you're just overwhelmed with all of the editing work. Well, we can help you with that also.
You can contact us at info@weknowpodcasting.com for more information.
We're excited to help your podcasting dreams become a reality.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network. You're listening to the Geekscape Network.